pure experiences.
Welcome to the voice version of the blog, Pure Experiences. You are listening to the article, Afflictions of the Mind Part 4.4, The Prison of Beliefs. Published on the 7th of September 2016 by Tarun Pradhaan. Published on pureexperiences.blogspot.in. This article discusses hypothesis, mathematical models, science, science workers, scientific theories, and scientists.
Scientific theories. Scientific theories, henceforth just theories, are beliefs about physical phenomena. These beliefs try to explain the hows, whats and whys regarding the phenomena. For example, the theory of gravity tries to explain the attraction of masses. The belief here is that there is something called gravity that is pulling objects with some property called mass. The concepts gravity and mass are mere assumptions, beliefs. Obviously, theories are very useful. Once we have the concepts of gravity, mass, etc., say, we can deduce equations, relations, behaviors from experimentation and mathematics and can build buildings, airplanes, boats, send people to the moon and whatnot. So why would any sane person call theories an affliction? They become an affliction only when we forget that they are just beliefs, and take them as fact and nothing but fact. I'm sure most of the educated folk think that the ideas like gravity, electromagnetism, fundamental particles, etc. are nothing but truths. After all, that's what their textbooks taught them. Why does that happen? Usually the educational standards are so low that textbooks do not include the definition of a theory, not even in fine print. No mention is made of scientific method. Philosophy and history of science are fringe subjects. Perhaps they don't land good jobs and make you rich. Students are taught theories and laws as if they are written in stone. It escapes many, even the intelligent and so-called scientists, that theory is a synonym for belief. Perhaps your school is a better one and did a good job in this case, but only a few get it. Tabloids, aka science magazines, never mentioned that scientists are simply stating their beliefs when they are describing something about a directly observed phenomenon. When a phenomenon is observed, its explanation starts with the description of its direct observation, how to replicate it and how to measure it. This is pure experimental science, aka empirical science, and is closest to the truth, but is not the truth. Science does not deal with truths. Period. Truth is a philosophical concept, that is, a made-up thing. There are no truths, just experiences. We have discussed this in detail earlier. However, there are logical truths, which simply means that some description of an experience/experiment is consistent when seen objectively. Not going again into the nitty-gritty of truths, I'd just say that the relation of a phenomenon with truth ends at empirical observation. After that, it's all just theory, concepts, beliefs. Next, a hypothesis is proposed to explain the phenomenon. A hypothesis is just a minimum set of assumptions. There can be many hypotheses. For example, the phenomenon of light can be hypothesized as tiny particles, EM waves, or quantum objects called photons, or merely assumptions. A good hypothesis is the one that minimizes the number of assumptions or entities. The hypotheses are then tested via experimentation, and when a hypothesis gathers some evidence, it is promoted to the rank of a theory. A theory adds logical statements, equations and predictions to the whole idea. Engineers take up these ideas and implement them in practice, creating new devices, things that work and are useful, providing further support to the theory. No matter how successful a theory is, it never becomes a truth. It remains as a belief. Science progresses by continuously replacing the old theories with new ones. The new ones are better, more elegant, and encompass a wider range of phenomena. This alone shows that a theory is just a description, and is totally disposable. In fact, discarding theories and promoting a wide variety of them is encouraged in science. This ensures fresh ideas keep coming in and stale ones go out of favor. Science is very dynamic, ever-changing, ever-evolving. So where does it all go wrong? Scientists are just humans and come with all the fears, ego issues, beliefs, biases and stupidities just like any other person. Just because someone is a scientist does not magically make his mind free of all afflictions. Some scientists, I prefer to call them science workers, are trained as a scientist due to their education or job, and they grow up into a dogmatic personality full of beliefs. Science is just another religion for them. These people derive their bread and butter from the skills they learned from the books or such. So any idea of their knowledge being incorrect makes them tremble with fear of losing their jobs, losing their credibility or public image. Clearly they have made their survival dependent on scientific views that are in fashion in their days. When the views change, as they must, these science workers are first to oppose the change. They hold on to their dear beliefs, as their destruction would mean the person's obsolescence. Pride also plays a major role here besides survival. Some science workers gain a position of authority based on their old expertise on the subject, and when newcomers throw the old off, they are threatened. They find ways to keep their false pride intact. Finally, some politics, cunningness, competition, greed, funding dependencies, desire for fame, jealousy, etc. are other reasons science workers don't want science to change or improve and don't like their beliefs questioned. I'm going to write another article on corruption in science to discuss the sorry state of things in the scientific fields. Science is as good as the person practicing it. So is it all bad? Obviously no. There are real scientists, with capital S, that arrive on the scene occasionally and throw off the old dogmas through their superior genius. These are the deviant kinds. They have creativity, intelligence and many more qualities a true scientist should have to make sweeping changes and improvements in their scientific field. Major discoveries, inventions are done by these people. Others, especially the science workers, merely follow them. True scientists are the ones that push the whole humanity a few notches up. They are the people who actually contribute to the knowledge. They are real sages. Sometimes even these people fall as their contributions are swept away in the coming tide of new ideas in science, and they become fossilized, opposing any changes. The power of beliefs is not to be underestimated. How should one get rid of scientific beliefs? If you are in the field of science, just realize that science deals with observation and theory, aka beliefs, ideas. The concept of truths is beyond the scope of science. There are just explanations, models and clever descriptions. Nothing is true in science, and nothing is false. A scientist is a true agnostic, open-minded critical thinker. It should take only a few minutes for a scientist to realize what a theory is. However, if you are a science worker or non-scientist, you need to educate yourself first. See how science works, how theories evolve. When you have no idea what science is, you will obviously form wrong notions about it. You will be subjected to manipulation by people who use science as a shield and as a weapon to rule. You will have no choice but to obey the so-called scientists. Once you see that science is only a way to gather knowledge, you will see all its advantages and disadvantages yourself and can judge it better. Isn't everything that is unscientific, that is not based on scientific method, just fantasy and mumbo-jumbo? Most of the science is also fantasy and mumbo-jumbo. One only needs to take a look at the history of science to see how much mumbo-jumbo it had. One need not assume that it is totally purified these days. It is surely better these days, because it is natural for science to progress. But most of the science is founded in fantasy. This is because theory has gained favor over direct empirical observation for some reasons. Anything new that does not conform to an established theory is thrown away. It's a strange upside-down behavior that has more to do with sociology and psychology than science itself. However, it remains the best tool that humans ever invented to study the physical universe. That is one part of the answer. The other part is, there is nothing preventing you from applying scientific method yourself to the so-called woo-woo stuff. Experiment, hypothesize, theorize and publish it to the community. You are most welcome. How many people do that? Almost none. Reason, bias, fears of ridicule, harm to career, etc., and hardened beliefs. Beliefs that science must deal with only material things. There are no material things. Says who? Science. Mathematical models. A mathematical model, henceforth model, is a description of a physical phenomenon using mathematics, numbers and logic. It is simulation of the actual experience of the phenomenon. The simulation resides in the mind, on paper or in a computer. A model is often based on experimental data, but can be totally made up to fit an experiment. An experiment may conform to a model more or less, and that decides the success of the model in explaining it. All models need not describe a phenomenon or any phenomenon. Some are just purely mathematical and correspond to no phenomenon at all. Some example of the models are force, mass, acceleration model of a body object, which is simply written as F equals m times a. Another one is V equals I times R, which is a relation between voltage and current in an electrical circuit. These are very simple models, and of course there can be very complex ones such as Maxwell's equations or Schrödinger equations. The more closely a model mimics the observations, the more favor it gains, and more predictions can be made using calculations. This makes the model useful for developing new technologies and forming new theories. Wonderful! Science at its best. So why are we dealing with models in mental afflictions section? A model becomes an affliction in the mind of a scientist or a student of science when it takes on a form of reality. Some people with shallow knowledge of science, aka indirect knowledge, often take the model as actual phenomenon it is describing. A model is not your experience of the phenomenon, it is a mathematical simulation. In above stated examples, the mathematical entities viz. Force, mass, current, and voltage etc. are not experiential entities and do not exist except as concepts. Shocking, isn't it? Even the scientific beliefs get solidified with time and mechanical repetition, so much so that ordinary people believe that the modeled entities are real things. As it turns out, majority of theoretical science deals with nothing but imaginary entities, aka mathematical objects. These entities are purely mental and correspond more or less with the observations. They are very useful, but are just ideas, beliefs. It is okay as long as ordinary people are concerned. They wouldn't know any better anyway without devoting their lives in the study of theoretical sciences. But when you are on a path of knowledge, it becomes necessary to dig deeper. Deeper than even the most capable scientist can go. It becomes necessary to realize that the models, whether related to physical or non-physical phenomena, are just simulations, and your experience of the phenomena, if any, will be totally different. As one can see, the models keep changing. They evolve, some are discarded. Some take centuries and some crumble in a few years. New entities are introduced and old are forgotten. With so much change, one would expect that a scientist would know the difference between observed phenomenon and its model, but no, this is only an ideal case. Science workers take models literally, and so do some scientists. Ordinary folk simply follow whatever they are told, not their fault. Science is difficult, beliefs are easy. Pure experiences.
You were listening to Pure Experiences by Tarun Pradhaan. For more, please visit pureexperiences.blogspot.in.